From KVUE News in Austin, you're watching Texas This Week with Ashley Goodo.
Good Sunday morning. It was a big week on Capitol Hill with the bipartisan passage of the Respect for Marriage Act. And Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick laid out his priorities for the next legislative session. Let's get to the 3 things you need to know in Texas politics. Giving Texas homeowners some property tax relief is at the top of Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick's 2023 to-do list. On Wednesday, Patrick, who presides over the Texas Senate and has a great deal of power over legislation, released his top priorities for the next session. The 21 items not only include property tax relief, but also border security, including funding to continue Governor Greg Abbott's Operation Lone Star and improving the reliability of the Texas electric grid. The 88th legislative session starts January 10th. The city of Uvalde is suing the Uvalde County District Attorney in an effort to get answers about the Robb Elementary School shooting. The lawsuit, filed Thursday, accuses the DA of withholding information from the independent investigator hired by the city to investigate the police response. The DA says she's not releasing that information to avoid possible interference into her office's investigation into law enforcement. KVUE News also learned this week a group of Texas lawmakers have gotten portions of the Department of Public Safety files on the Uvalde shooting by signing non-disclosure agreements with DPS, something not typically done in such high-profile cases. U.S. senators passed historic legislation this week to protect same-sex and interracial marriage in the event the Supreme Court overturns federal protections. The Respect for Marriage Act does not force states to legalize same-sex marriage, but it does require them to recognize legal marriages from other states regardless of sex, race, ethnicity, or national origin. The bill passed with bipartisan support, but Texas Senators John Cornyn and Ted Cruz, along with the majority of Senate Republicans, voted against it. The House already passed similar legislation and is expected to send the bill to the president's desk. Early voting is happening now in the city of Austin, where voters are electing a mayor and filling 3 council seats. In District 5, which covers South Austin, voters will decide between communications professional Stephanie Bazan, who got 29% of the vote in November, and Ryan Alter, a Capitol staffer and attorney who ended the night with 25% of the vote. I talked with both candidates about their bids for council. We'll start with Bazan. You know, the race for District 5, you guys were very, very close, but you had, a bit of a sizable lead over Ryan Alter, 29% to 25%. Tell our viewers what you believe makes you the better candidate in this race.
Thank you so much for that question. So I do believe that I'm the better candidate for multiple reasons. One, I have been deeply involved in my community in South Austin since I was a young Girl Scout. And so I have a commitment to service that shows through. And you could tell that when I was in the lines the day of voting. I wouldn't have 20 minutes pass before I would run into a former student or somebody who I knew from church or other things. And so you could tell that deep community involvement and the South Austinites were coming out for me. The other thing that I feel that's important is the way that I communicate with voters in my community. And I've been told that I make policy sound simple. And that's really something that I'm trying to do, is make sure that people, when they're busy doing their everyday task, whether that's work or taking kids to school, that they can count on me to make sure that I am sharing what's happening at City Hall with them in easy to digest ways.
I want you to tell us what you believe is the biggest issue impacting the people living in District 5 and what you would do to address it if you're elected to the council.
Thank you so much for that question. And so when I am out the doors, I am hearing from people about affordability and housing. And so those are 2 things that I am looking to address. I have visited with many experts in these areas and also attended the city summit put on by the Austin Monitor to talk about these issues specifically. So some things that we can do around housing that has already been talked about on the dais is looking at relaxing compatibility, also looking at permitting and streamlining that process for homeowners. We do need to make sure that our city is accessible for the everyday working person. And I'm hearing stories over and over again about teachers and EMS and folks that are really the backbone of our community who are not able to stay in town. And so we need to make sure that there are a diversity of housing options. Our missing middle housing is available for people to be able to work here and stay. And then we need to look at transportation options because we do know that when people can live closer to work and have more opportunity, that also affects their pocketbook. A lot of the money that we spend is on housing and transportation. And so if we target those two areas, that's helping the everyday person.
On December 13th, Austin voters living in City Council District 5 will decide who will represent them at City Hall. Communications professional Stephanie Bazan or attorney and Capitol staffer Ryan Alter. Before the break, we talked with Bazan. Now let's hear from Alter. I want you to tell our viewers why you believe you are the better candidate in this runoff race.
Absolutely. I think the really big separator in this runoff is really experience and ability to show up and get stuff done. You know, I have spent my career in public service working on these issues, whether it's housing, healthcare, transportation. There are pressing needs that Austinites have and that District 5 residents have. And I have the experience to show up on day one and get us moving forward. We can't afford just talking about these issues anymore. We need someone ready with solutions to move us forward. And I think that's what I have to offer.
And what would you do to address the housing and affordability crisis if you are elected to council?
So it gets real complicated, real wonky, pretty quick, but really at a high level, what you see not only throughout District 5, but throughout Austin is scraping a lot and building a really big home that very few people can afford. And this not only limits who can buy new homes in Austin, but it has that impact on the neighbor who might be that fixed income resident who now has a multi-million-dollar home next to them, and that is dramatically increasing their property values and making it so that they can't even stay in their home. And so what I am proposing is, at its fundamental level, a trade. You know, right now we make it incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to build something other than that expensive home, and that's because that's basically all the code allows for. And what I think we should do is instead say, look, we're going to allow for more options, a diversity of housing, if the lot can sustain it. You know, every lot is different, and so this takes a lot by lot approach where maybe you have a larger lot that could sustain 3 condo or not like cottage type homes or maybe a 4-plex. We're not going to change the impervious cover, so you can't take over a lot and have adverse environmental impacts. But by creating those additional options and pairing it with making those options actually easy to pursue instead of right now the very burdensome and lengthy process that disincentivizes anyone from doing this, that you are going to be more attracted to do this. And the trade-off that the city gets is we're going to require 3/4 of those to be affordable. And so we are saying we're going to create this easier route to make more attainable housing, and in return you're going to make it at a price point that people can actually afford. And I think it's a real idea that will have real impact for people across the city.
You can learn more about Bazan and Alter at KVUE.com. Remember, early voting ends December 9th and Election Day is December 13th. And don't forget, the KVUE News Austin mayoral runoff debate is tomorrow at 6 p.m. Watch State Representative Celia Israel and Kurt Watson go head-to-head live, fighting for your vote. Now it's time for Ashley's Bill of the Week, our new Texas This Week segment where I highlight different pieces of legislation that catch my eye. This week, I want to tell you about a bill that impacts every teenage girl and woman you know. Yes, all of them. For the past 3 legislative sessions, that's 6 years since 2017, Austin State Representative Donna Howard has tried to pass a bill to help every woman in Texas save a little bit of money, 8.25% to be exact, by eliminating something affectionately referred to as the tampon tax. You see, in the great state of Texas, where we don't tax basic necessities, we don't consider feminine hygiene products to be a basic necessity. Now, I started to explain why pads and tampons are necessary for menstruating women, but decided I'll spare you the details. Interestingly, though, Texans don't have to pay sales tax for other items to treat bloody situations like Band-Aids or gauze. You don't pay sales tax on sunscreen or medicine or vitamins. You don't even pay sales tax on corn cushions for your feet or newspapers, because we all know how necessary those things are. But those actually medically necessary period supplies, well, ladies, fork over that sales tax every month, because Texas is one of the 22 states in the U.S. that still charges tax on your tampons. Representative Howard is trying once again to change that with House Bill 70. Now, there is a little bit of hope for the bill this session. State Senator Joan Huffman, who is now the Senate Finance Chair, and Glenn Hager, the state comptroller, aka the state's money man, support repealing the tax. So Representative Howard, maybe fourth time's the charm. We'll keep our legs crossed for you.